Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another video on the channel. Now, we're doing another Solana update because its price has done exactly what we've been thinking it might do over the last few weeks. So I want to give you an update on what I'm expecting next and how we can be prepared for it. Now, looking at Solana here, let's recap the last few weeks just a little bit. Of course, I told you all that we needed to be extremely careful at this 786 zone. This is the party pooper zone, which historically will reject Solana's price to the downside. And so as we started to approach $122, I told you all to be careful. I personally would not be buying. The price might get rejected. Let it clear $123 before you continue your purchasing, and this is exactly what we were getting prepared for. As you can see here, from top to bottom, we have now pulled back about roughly 26% off of establishing that high, and now it puts us in a position in which we can really take advantage of this pullback. So of course, for those of you who recognize the danger of this zone, congratulations, kind of save you, 30% losses. That's not bad. Okay, but obviously the show goes on. Let's talk about what is happening more recently. Well, more recently we saw Solana's price then revisit this ascending trend line, which we said had a very high likelihood of getting broken out to the downside. I said 80 to 90% of the time these ascending trend lines will lose support just because it's unrealistic to think they can maintain it forever. Okay, it's almost always going to happen at some point, unless it's like an absolute rally that never goes back down to some of those really lower levels initially, but that's not common. Okay, and so with that in mind, we knew there's a high chance we're going to lose some support here. The question was just when. Well, what we said is that if we do see Solana's price lose this support, melt back down through this support, be on the lookout for it to return to about $85. Why $85? $85 was the previous point in which we established support on that ascending trend line. And when you lose that trend line, you're going to go back to that last establishment of support to see if you can hold it or not. That's just what happens, right? The likelihood is here, you're going to have an ascending trend line in the last time you touched it. You're going to melt through that trend line, back test that last time that you touched it, establish support, then back test the trend line. And then the decision gets made, and that's what brings us to now. So the loss of support is exactly what we talked about, and it just happened. So let's talk about what we can expect next. Well, it's realistically only two things can happen, okay? You guys know at the end of the day, we don't try to just be right. Okay, I'm going to give you all of the possibilities, all of the things that might happen, and tell you how to prepare for it so that you can't lose. You can't lose if it goes up. You can't lose if it goes down because you're ready. Okay, so let's talk about either scenario here and then how I personally would react to said scenario. Scenario number one is that Solana's price does hold support here. So scenario number one is that this put in the bottom, we're in some type of little double bottom-ish level right here, right? Some type of weird little double bottom that's happening on the hourly charts. And we are going to see its price either go sideways or bounce its way back to the upside and continue this run. Although this is a possibility, I don't think this is the most likely scenario. I would say this is maybe a 40% chance or 35% chance of happening, okay? 40 to 35%. The reason I even give it that much percentage is because of the fact that Solana's price did just hit a macro Fibonacci level, which does historically have the ability to, of course, bounce it back to the upside. Now, what you can see is that if we draw in our swing low to our swing high from this range that we put in right here to the high that we put in this rally, it puts Solana's micro Fibonacci level between $78 and $86. And because the Fibonacci's have such a strong history of rejecting the price in the opposite direction, I will say that there's a chance that it does hold a little bit of sideways movement on top of this level, or just flat out try to go for the run from this level here. Now, will it sustain? Will it actually make it back up here? There's really no way of knowing, obviously, but there is a chance that it does happen. Like I said before, I think it's the less scenario. I think it's a scenario that has the least chance of happening, but again, it's something that you need to look at. Now, another thing to consider that does kind of support this scenario is the fact that Solana is now implementing a bullish divergence. We have been consistently setting these lows on top of the 0% threshold throughout this entire move since October, but Solana's price just nosedived on the chart prime oscillator through the 0% threshold, now officially establishing a lower low. But in that same time frame on the price itself, we are still establishing higher lows. That means that there's bullish divergence. You can see there's a change. There's a difference that's happening between this and between that. And whenever that happens, that is considered to be bullish divergence in the sense that the opportunity to the upside is now growing. And that is something that means that we could, of course, see the bounce to the upside or the sideways movement before the bounce. So that does support the thesis that we might find support here. But again, I think it's just the lesser scenario. It's the scenario that has the less chance of happening. Okay. The scenario that I believe has more of a chance of happening is that Solana's price does continue a little bit further down to what could be $77 to $70. The reason being is that these first lows don't usually hold. Historically speaking, when we've established support on top of an ascending level, then we break that ascending level, that first establishment of support doesn't usually hold. A lot of the times what happens is it holds for the first bounce. So we'll break through, we'll hit it, and we'll bounce back up. will backtest that ascending level of support, flip it into resistance, and then nosedive through that previous level of support. That's usually what happens. It's not always, but again, that's just usually, I would say 60 to 70% of the time, that is what happens. And so because 60-70% of the time that is what happens, I would be personally prepared for a possible little shorting opportunity here. If Solana's price does lose $85, I think that there is a decent short trade that can be taken between, of course, 85 to 77 and then 77 to 68. Now, what I would do is I would just go over to Margex. By the way, Margex is by a far the best trading platform, no matter where you are in the world, for the world of crypto. It's the easiest to use. It has some of the best fees. They have the best support team. They will not give you any issues. You don't have to KYC. You don't have to do a VPN. You can literally just deposit and trade. Exactly how it should be in the world of decentralized finance is exactly what Margex does. So go check them out down below. Stop wasting your time on other exchanges. And what you can see here is personally, I would just go in and I would get this short going. Margex makes it real easy to pick your leverage. I would personally do anything between 10x to 5x. Nothing crazy. Don't do 100x. That's stupid, especially in a bull market. Don't short with high leverage. It's just dumb. Okay, but I would go in, set my limit price, and watch the magic happen, okay? Personally, I would be looking for that short trade to get some gains of roughly, say if we're on 5x leverage, this is about a 9% move to the downside, so we can consider that to be about a 40 to 50% gain. And if it does continue even further than that, once we take that initial profit, that could be upwards of 100% gain, so it wouldn't be a bad one, especially considering the likelihood is here that Solana's price would get this pull towards the downside if we do lose, again, $85. Now, the question you may be asking is, why did we pick $77 to $70? And the reason being is because, again, what we are seeing in the sense of the micro Fibonacci's. What you can see is, let's just get rid of all this again, and let's draw that Fibonacci in one more time. If you look here, this level, the $77 level, marks the zone of the 786 level, right? So that 786 level to the downside, which is the strongest Fibonacci in existence, would then be set at $77, and that's where I would expect a real bounce to the upside. Now, it's also considered to be the top side of this range that we put in here, and this is a strong zone of liquidity. I mean, we spent weeks just within this little range, bouncing back and forth, building up all of this liquidity, and so because of that, considering this is the 786 level, and there's so much liquidity right under this, this is where my guess is that Solana's price would go before looking for a continuation if we lose $85 to the downside. So with that in mind, I will of course continue monitoring this thing. I'm not doing that much right now. I'm just going to kind of let it play out and just see what happens. But obviously I would be implementing that short trade. And like I said, I'm doing it over on Margex. Stop wasting your time on other exchanges. You're losing time and you're losing money. So you might as well just go use the better platform. Okay. So with that in mind, again, in the meantime, while this is happening, of course, I will continue giving you some microcap updates, meme coins, things like that, because when the broad market does slow down a little bit, the memes usually pick up, and you can see it. I mean, over in HG Access, which is our new platform, you can see we've been rolling in gains. It's just been ridiculous. Just last night, well, this was this morning at 2 a.m. I cannot sleep these days. We put in a 43% gain in just 5 hours. We, of course, also saw one of our guys in the chat, Hot Dog, recommend Rain. That thing went up 71% in 15 hours. We saw Alf go up 70% from our recommendation from Altcoin Hero. We saw, of course, FK Inu go up about 55% in 5 hours. We had that run for Fink, which was up 700% over the course of 4 days. I mean, it's been ridiculous, right? And so when the broad market does slow down, we do dabble in the world of microcaps. And if that's something that's interesting to you, go down to the HG Access link down below and go learn more about it. But with that in mind, of course, I have another video coming out in about 5 or 6 hours from when this one drops. So make sure you're ready for that one. But if you enjoyed this one, drop a like on it so more people can see it, and subscribe to the channel so I know you want to see more. But I appreciate you stopping in on this beautiful Monday morning, and I will see you all next time. Peace out, everyone.